السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So far we have seen in Surah Al-Qalam how Quran made a very clear comparison and distinction between the paradigm that is brought, or the new paradigm brought by Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the new paradigm that is based on the high values, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will be the best person to exemplify, to realize them in his life, to be a model for humanity, in fact. Like his predecessors were also good models, for humanity really to emulate. Compared with the prevailing paradigm, which again I'm using the word prevailing because this is really the ones was dominated by the elites, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us an example, okay, of such really paradigm, and we talked about the different attributes that we just said that from the tone of the words themselves you can tell they are really bad attributes, okay. And the idea that we were focusing on and the surah, it seems that this is its main objective, or the axis around which its verses revolve around, is that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming with this new paradigm should not be reconciliatory when it comes to the basics of that paradigm, the underpinning of that paradigm, which is really the high values. Okay, you can negotiate about anything you want and find middle ground, okay, that's fine, but not at the expense of the high values. From mercy to forgiveness to justice to wisdom to knowledge, all the values, as we said, that are derived from the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we are going to tackle another section of the surah, which basically from verse 16 till verse 33. Okay, from 16 to 33, you will see a story. And the storytelling, as you know, is very common in Quran. And it's one of its styles, okay, to bring the idea, okay, to our consciousness through this storytelling. Now, storytelling in general, okay, what does it really mean? Again, you are talking about events, but the whole idea of storytelling is to be a process by which we can make a meaning out of these events. We want to understand. It's not just the succession of event or the chronology of the events, but at the same time we want to understand the way, or the reason we tell a story is basically to make meaning of these events. Why these events really happen.
Remind and understand.
Exactly. So I want to understand, okay? Or if I want to explain to somebody, okay, or to bring them that particular meaning, I tell them a story.
Get some lesson.
And then you can ask yourself, okay, what does that really mean? The moment you read a story in the newspaper, or you hear a story on, and this is very common now in the media, okay, even like the way the reporters really tell us what is going on, they tell a story. Okay? And even in our practice as physicians, okay, like the same thing. I mean, the first thing we do is to take history. What does that mean? What is the story? I mean, even sometimes we ask each other, what is the story of this patient? But it's not just about events and what happened, but we want to understand, to make a meaning out of these really events. And let us approach that story in that understanding, okay? And then it becomes really a model for you, and for me definitely. When I tackle other stories in Quran, I try to approach it in that same fashion. So let us take it as a model, okay, in storytelling. And we will see, as Quran is telling us that story, okay, you immediately start to find, okay, I start to get it. Like, what is the moral of that study? What does it really mean? Is it going to help me to go from one level to the next? This is what the word ibra means. Ibra is really what we see, the moral of the story. Okay? It's beyond lesson. It is ibra. Quran used this term a lot. إن في ذلك لعبرة لأولي الألباب. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب. At the end of Surah Yusuf. It's a long story. Is that very detailed? I mean, the whole surah almost is dedicated for these important events that happened in the experience of Yusuf alayhi salam. At the end, Quran will say, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. مَا كَانَ حَدِيثًا يُفْتَرَى. It's not really like we are fabricating, because confabulation is very common. While we are telling a story, we start adding in between, filling the gaps, if you like. It's very important. ما كان حديثا يفترى. It's not, we are not confabulating or fabricating these events just to make it a cohesive story. Very important, because a lot of people will say, oh, are the stories real in Quran? Or are they just metaphoric? Yes, it's a very common question. No, نحن نقص at the beginning of Surah Yusuf, نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص, the best of stories. And ما كان حديثا يفترى. We did not, there is no lying about it. No confabulations, no fabrication. It's all true and the best. Very important. Now, when you tell a story, or let me go a little bit back and say, how do we process information? According to psychologists and neurobiologists, now we have a better understanding of these processes. Okay? I don't think they are final, but they are important steps in approaching, okay, the truth. Okay? And this is the nice thing about science. Okay, is that it's always there is a space to refine or to bring a new model. Okay, we understand this all together, and we have emphasized it a lot, but it is very important. So that there are two major mechanisms of processing information. One, they call it the paradigmic approach, where you basically connect events based on cause and effect. I tell you something, immediately you process it. Oh, because of this what happened. You see me like what from up to from my head to my toes, and you say, oh, probably it is raining outside. Okay, and you don't have an umbrella. You get what Is that,
Yeah.
this is a simple thing, but this is how we process the information. Okay? But there is another process or mechanism, which is the narrative. We like to narrate, like storytelling. Okay? But what was interesting about this is that when we narrate a story, we use language. So which part of the brain we are using? Which one?
Basic.
The dominant. Okay, if you are right-handed, then it means that I am using the left hemisphere because it has the center of language, because verbal language. Okay? But also, you are not using only the verbal knowledge or the verbal language, or signals, but you are also using non-verbal signals, which is really the role of the right hemisphere. In other words, when I am reading a story, okay, I am not only interested, as we said earlier, this is what happened at the beginning, and this is what happened after that, and what happened after that, the sequence. This can be given to me by the verbal, signals, which, as we said, the left hemisphere and most of the people will be responsible for this. But remember that our two hemispheres are not separate. Yes, each one has its own function, but we know that also there are neurons that connect the two hemispheres together. And so it makes it not only a cohesive story, because I am putting the events in sequence, and to make it, and as we said, like sometimes when we don't have enough information, we fabricate them to make it cohesive. It's innate in us, But the non-verbal signals help me to understand the meaning of what is being told me or what I am really telling. Then it makes it coherent. Not only cohesive, but coherent. And the best is when really the right and the left hemispheres are congruent. It's not like I am telling you a story and is very dry and you cannot understand the subjective meaning, the social, the emotional state of the people involved in that story. And this is why, like, now when we tell this story, when Quran is telling us that story and we are reading it, I want you not only to pay attention to the events, but also if we can understand the emotional, the psyche, the subjective feelings of the heroes, if you like, of that story. Make sense?
Yeah.
Is it? Again, you are now we have deeper understanding of what is about the storytelling, But not only from the how our brain works, but also we want also to read in between the lines. What does it really mean, reading in between the lines? Something that is not said verbally. The non-verbal signals.
The implied signals.
And then you can talk more about the moral of because now you are understanding to the deeper level what is happening. And my dear brothers and sisters, this is, why sometimes we like to read novels, for example. And you heard me even recommending to people to read clean, good novels. Because it tells you about yourself through the experience of somebody else. You cannot know it except that person tells us about it. This is what I meant, the subjective. Okay, this subjectivity. Only that person knows about it. And definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we don't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about a group of people or one person that we have not been in contact with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures for us these internal, if you like, feelings, emotions, what is happening in the psyche of that individual or that group of people. Yes, please.
That non-verbal psyche we are finding, won't it be different from individual to individual because it depends on the individual personal experience,
Exactly, yes.
personal knowledge? If you are more knowledgeable, you would extract more and better understanding, but if I'm not, I may not be able.
And this is why not any story is selected. Quran clearly made it clear. I mean, clearly stated that نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص, the best of stories. Even the stories of prophets were not even told to us because they are irrelevant to your time. Okay, Quran ignored them. منهم من قصصنا عليك ومنهم من لم نقصص عليك. Why Quran is telling us this? To tell us that because of their relevance, we told you about it. If they are irrelevant, the same thing. That story you will see. You will judge for yourself if it is relevant or not. Relevant at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and is it relevant to my time since I am still living in the era of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the era of Quran. There is no other era after Quran. Okay, this is the last era. Is that right? So it has to be relevant to me. Makes sense? Yes, they are. You are right, and this is why we nobody will tell me except that person going through that experience. Yes.
Even it says in some chapter, it says that we have too many prophets that came over. We don't tell all the stories to you. When I asked him, why not telling us? He said, it doesn't work for me at this time. He's telling you that.
It's, basically, ignored for, most likely for that reason. They have nothing to do with you. So it's not about fun or entertainment. Quran is not because sometimes there are stories that are told for entertainment. Is that right? No. Quran is above that. Okay, above. You read it. In many places we are above this silly type of fun or sport, la'ib, or we are not playing games and entertaining you here. No, we are telling you that is relevant and of significance to your own life. And hence, it is important to extract the moral, and which is not an easy process. It requires a lot of knowledge, lot of experience, and deeper understanding of what is really going on. Let us apply these concepts now to the story itself. So Quran says, إِنَّا بَلَوْنَاهُمْ كَمَا بَلَوْنَا أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ. When you read the whole story, you find that the issue, the problem that has infested societies, including the one where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam appeared, is really greed. And because we are tackling the surahs that were early revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can easily say that greed the problem of poverty and hunger and are really among the important issues, or among the or how to solve them were among the important messages, the early messages that Muhammad ﷺ brought. Even before Muhammad ﷺ tackled the issue of shirk and idolatry, okay, this is what is on the mind of people, that Muhammad showed up in a society that worship idols. I mean, this is very simplistic, to be honest with you. And when you read Quran or understand the history of Quran, its chronology, you will find that long before Quran tackled that issue, he told us about the implications of this system, the diseases associated with this system. Again, that ranges from hunger, poverty, disenfranchisement, marginalization of certain people, especially the poor who were slaves in that community, women, unfortunately. I mean, anybody that showing signs of weakness, they were basically immediately marginalized. So these were really the issues that were tackled at the beginning. As if Quran is saying, if we do not solve these issues, what does it really mean to that poor person if you tell them like bow to this idol or bow to another god? What does that mean? He's still poor. He's still facing, the important issues. I mean, think about it. And this is why we can at the same time understand why these people were the first to respond. Because they see in that new message the hope to take them out from this desire, this misery. Injustice. Okay, because what is really the problem here? Why greed is the problem? Because it's a major cause for social disparity, class discrimination, and disenfranchisement, this marginalization. People who have versus those who do not have. And there is nothing to reconciliate. Both of them, unfortunately, they are imprisoned, but in a different type of prison. One is imprisoned by his wealth, and the other is imprisoned by his poverty. Both require liberation. And so Quran is saying, okay, we have tried your people in Mecca, okay, the same way we treated this group, the owners of an orchard, a garden. Okay? Now, this group of basically children who basically inherited that orchard from their father. Their father had a legacy. What was that legacy? That he saw always a portion of his harvest for the poor. The children want to change that, to abdicate, abandon that legacy. Out of what?
Greed.
Of greed, okay. Why I have to give these people? They have not helped. They always bring, okay, explanation, if you like, or an excuse why they are not doing it. So they don't see their responsibility. And this is, my dear brothers and sisters, very important. I don't know if I told you this story, I mean, like about one of my young students asked me, like, what is the issue of tattooing? Why is it not acceptable? I mean, this is not an easy question, okay? And at the same time, I am not the type who would like to give like fatwa rulings, okay? This is halal, this is haram, this is... I like, okay, that whoever is asking a question to help me in finding the answer, okay? And it doesn't have to be always complete, okay? So I asked that student a question. I said, okay, you are studying now, and in a few years you will be working and you will be earning money. Can you do with your money whatever you want? And I gave him an example. Can you like buy alcohol? He said, no, I cannot. So no question that yes, you have this money, but you are entrusted with it. It's not a total ownership. You were given, you were entrusted with this money to spend it in the right way. I did not continue. He said, I got it. Because your body, because people say, oh, this is my body, I can do with it whatever I want. This is not yours. In that sense, you are entrusted with that body. I don't have to but again, what are we doing here? You are giving that child not an answer, but you are giving him or her a methodology. Because today I am with that child, with your son, daughter, okay? But tomorrow they are far from you. How are they going to make a judgment? They will use the same judgment, if you like. So in other words, you provided them with methodology, how to reach, with an approach, rather than giving them, like you are teaching your kid how to solve a mathematical problem. If you just said, oh, you do this and that, and this is that. Next question he will ask you, please come and do it for me. No, but if you tell them how you reached, is that right, Brother Muhammad? See, Muhammad, this is the way this is when you teach your son about in physics, is that right? You show them why. Okay, you are doing this and that. They can understand the concept, the methodology, the mechanism of how to reach. Then they are on their own. And this is how we learn. Is that right? Yes, please.
I would have a more persuasive answer. I was walking along the streets of downtown of a small town, and there's this shop. It says, it's a tattoo shop. Okay? And the name of the shop is Gateway to Hell.
Okay. So this is the underpinning of the problem. Okay. When we think that whatever we earn or we got in this life or inherit in any way or shape, they become in our own hands, we think that we own it. And the absolute meaning of ownership. Okay? And then as everything comes after that, you understand why, or the excuses that are really given. But when you are really entrusted, you become irresponsible. And you will ask questions, how should I deal with what I really have earned? And always remember, we don't want to tackle a new surah and forget about the one before. One of the major lessons we learned from Surah Al-Muddathir is that every human soul can become hostage to what it has earned. Everything we earn and has the potential to become an idol, to become hostage to it. In other words, you need to be liberated from it. And so this is where the problem. This is what they said. Okay? إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ. They gave themselves an oath that tomorrow we are going to collect the harvest. In the morning, early in the وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ, without any exceptions. Everything will be for us. Instead of having 100, they will have 125 or 150 apples. It's really very, tempting. Okay? And it is, the more you see, the more is the temptation. You know how I was told one time how they catch a raccoon. Does anybody know how they catch a raccoon?
Trap. Right?
And that what they put in the trap?
I think food.
Food. The more food you put, the more tempting will be for the raccoon to come in, and then they close. They become immediately impressed. It's very interesting. Analogy. Okay, so how these temptations become our own prison. So they ignored the legacy of their righteous father, who always saw a right for the poor and the needy in his harvest. And this is why Quran later on will say, وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. At the time of harvest, gave its right. There is something upon you, a duty upon you to give back this right. In other words, like even the poor can see, okay, that he or she has right in that money. You see, Quran is very specific. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. It's not really a matter of if you want or you don't want. You see, no. This is the right.
Your duty.
It's your duty to honor that right. So these children resolve to neglect the poor and the needy for no reason except greed. They don't have any other explanation. But you can see, okay, they're planning, okay, aqsamu. It's like a resolve. Well, when you make an oath, you are determined. So it is a predetermined.
Promise.
They are promising each other that we will basically collect everything for us and ignore really the poor and the needy. So فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ. So in other words, in every story, we need to approach it in this fashion, if you like. I'm suggesting. How are we going to trace the problem, identify the problem? So what do you do when you find a problem? You shove it under the rug? What is the best way is to face it. So tracing, facing, and then you try to mitigate that problem to resolve it. We'll call it erasing. So tracing, facing, and erasing. We need to trace the problem. So far we start really to understand the problem, okay? So it's greed. It's about greed. But also we want to know how we face that problem and how to erase it. So, how did they go? Did they start telling people that we are going tomorrow to get the harvest? Secretly. Why do you go secretly about something? So you are hiding something? Is that right? If they were really truthful and honest about what they are really doing, why to do it secretly? Here, again, nobody was with them. Who uncovered this for us? Yes, this is very subjective. We may know later on what happened because everybody witnessed that. But who witnessed them when they were making an oath among themselves that we are going to get the whole harvest and we are not going to give any portion of it to the poor and to the needy? And who were with them when they basically planned and plotted secretly? That tells you what they are really basically thinking. So basically they don't want anybody to know what they are really, or to see what are they going really to do. But between their decision and their action, something happened. And clearly the story is telling us that it is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ. It's very beautiful, my dear brothers and sisters, because if one really learned about this incident, that a fire happened, in that orchard and burned it all over. Okay? How can you understand? How can you explain it? If you read about a story like that, and these things happen. Okay? We especially during this season, we heard a lot about fires. Tackling forests and subdivisions. Sometimes not only few houses, but the whole subdivisions are really burned out. People can have explanations, because of the weather, or combination of, or somebody probably threw a burning cigarette. Whatever. In other words, these things happen, sporadically, not necessarily to bring an explanation. Oh, these people, they were bad and God. This is, to me, is really nonsense. And that, as long as you do not really have, But in this particular story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, min rabbika. It is come. Otherwise, we may start really like contemplating about things that are not really true, or they happen at random. Okay? But it is innate in us always to think in the form of a pattern. But doesn't mean that all these patterns are really true. And sometimes we jump into conclusions because our brain is wired to think in a pattern way, like to find a pattern out of things happening before us. How many times, like, you look at a cloud and you see, oh my God, this cloud looks like this shape. Or, oh, I saw Allah written, on that cloud. This happened by... This is called the pareidolia. This is a very known situation, in neurology. It's innate in us to see these patterns. But these patterns also, not only we see them in the physical world, but also in the world of ideas. We try, like when you hear a story, you try to think along a certain pattern to make an explanation of it. But this is very quick, my dear brothers and sisters, and many times it's not really true. You need to use critical thinking to make sure that this pattern works or not.
That's called the cognitive bias.
One of the cognitive biases that we have always to be aware of. And really, the other term of this bias, this type of bias, is conspiracy. Conspiracy theory is based on this. We want to find a pattern to explain what happened. But many times, this pattern may not be true. It is out of the immediate really like thinking or the fast thinking about what is happening. Quran is asking us to be slow in our judgment, to think, to use critical thinking, not to surrender our will to these biases. And believe me, these things, okay, we are not born with. We need to learn them. This is why we send our kids to schools, to learn math and all these, to become more logical in their approach. But unfortunately, they don't tell the students why we are teaching you these things. And so the children will see it a burden and boring. But if you tell them that these are important for your own life, how to think about things, how to reach conclusions, how to eliminate the biases that we are all vulnerable to. But we need them. Why we are wired this way? Because you need them for survival. If you are confronted with something, you don't need to slowly think about it. We may lose our own lives, or we may be harmed. So we need these things for survival. But beyond that, they may work against us and they prevent us from reaching the real conclusion. So one may say this is a conspiracy. But Quran, subhanallah, said, min rabbika.
It's from Allah.
From Allah. Again, I want you also to be aware of one interesting thing. That Quran is telling us a story from before. And no question in my mind that it happened at a time when the level of abstraction is still very low, at the level of humanity. Generally speaking, Today, humanity is by far more learned and more informed. No question about that. So when your level of abstraction is low, you need to see it in colors for your own eyes. In other words, they have to see it in a tangible way, not at the level of flow of ideas. Today you can convince. You can use, experiences from before and data and all this is to convince someone about something. But at that level, they have to see it before their own eyes. If you do this, this is the consequence. If you don't give out of greed, the whole thing, you will lose all of it. Today we don't see that. In this particular situation, okay? But one has to relate to this. The destruction may be in different forms. It doesn't have to be in this physical, tangible way. And here comes what we were saying earlier. What is happening inside? Not only from the outside. The outside is easy to see. But what is happening inside? What were the plans? What were the intentions? Nobody. Can I know what is your intention and you know my intention? You don't know. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Is that right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear. So between their planning and their action, something happened, Quran is saying, while they were asleep. Wa hum na'imun. This wa, in Arabic, language, okay, it signifies the state. We call it wawul hal. So it happened while they were in a state of sleep. Now, sleep, it's real sleep. They were really asleep because it happened at night. Okay? But the point is, what does sleep metaphorically mean to you? Resting, fine. But what else? Ignorance. Inattentiveness. Yeah, they were heedless of what we're really thinking and planning. You see, Quran again, if you want to go, you can take it literally and say they were asleep. And sleep is a state. Now I am a state of wakefulness. When I sleep is a state of sleep. Is that right? Which are different. But also metaphorically you may be awake but behaving as if you are asleep. How many times we are listening? You try it. Many times I said to somebody, did you hear what the Khatib said? He said this and this and that. And he said, are you sure? He said, I did not pay attention. Because he was probably, yes, he was awake, but he was, probably it may happen also to me the same way. It can happen, no question about it. But the point is, okay, as if Quran is saying, wake up for us. Okay? Wake up. It's awakening for us. Don't be in a state of sleep as we are narrating that story to you. I want you to collect all your faculties in order to make sense of this story. of the events of that story. Now it makes sense to where we were saying at the beginning. This is the whole idea of storytelling, is to make meaning out of the events. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. It's just sequence of events that will not have any impact really on you. Again, the idea is not to entertain. Okay? How many times you see a movie and you say, there is nothing in that movie, but it was probably entertaining. I mean, you don't want to think, and you relax, and you you see. You follow, but at the end you say, so what is?
What was this all about?
What's it all about? Okay, and it doesn't really. Even sometimes, if it is really like a funny, like not necessarily serious, but it tells you something about the experience of these. Yeah. So what accompanied that event, not the event itself. And generally speaking, the Europeans are more into that than the Americans. The American movies are more about events. The Europeans are more towards like what is going on. Okay, so again, the subjective, the social, the emotional meaning that accompanied these events. And to be honest with you, the Iranians are very good at that. And I recommend their movies because they were able to translate very difficult, abstract ideas into a movie. It's very difficult. How to make it go through. How to relay that idea, which is very difficult at the intellectual level, but they were able to make it, to popularize it through. What is all about movies and songs and this is a way to popularize a certain idea. It's easier to reach the populace, the general masses in the society, which requires lot of effort and really high level of intelligence of how really to make that a translation. So فَأَصْبَحَتْ كَالصَّرِيمِ, burned out. The whole harvest, the whole garden is gone. And they still don't know about it. فَتَنَادَوْا مُصْبِحِينَ, they woke up in the morning, they start calling upon each other to go. أَنِغْدُوا عَلَى حَرْثِكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَارِمِينَ, let us go to the orchard, collect the harvest, the whole crop, okay? And that was basically their resolve. Now they have to face the reality. Okay? They have to face it and uncover the real face of their greed. Because really what they are going to see reflecting them. Is it going to be a beautiful garden? It will be ugly. So this is their ugly face. They will see themselves through that, what happened to that garden. Warty, wrinkled. It's not anymore beautiful and glimmering and really like disseminating happiness inside the person who is really looking at it. So they needed a tangible experience in order to believe it. Why I am saying this? Because later on, Quran will say that one among them warned them about it. Did they listen? They did not listen to him. So they had to, you see what I'm talking about? again, the level of abstraction is still low. They are not going to be convinced through conversations and at the level of reasoning and thinking intelligently. So they had to experience it in a tangible world in order to realize what they have done. And their selfish dream, their greedy dream, now is actualized in destruction, deprivation, and depravity. So as the morning broke, as Quran said, they called out one to another, "Go to your orchard in the morning if you would gather the fruits." And they opened the morning strong in unjust resolve. وَغَدَوْا عَلَى حَرْدٍ قَادِرِينَ. You see, this is very beautiful. Again, with the idea of hostage to what you really earn. Okay? So they thought that they will be in control of they have. You see, Quran in another place said, لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا. Or in another place, لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا. لا يقدرون مما كسبوا على شيء. لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا. Neither they have control on what they have earned, and whatever they have earned, they did not add to their control. They lost their control over things. In other words, when I achieve something, when I got something, earn something, am I going to be controlling it, or I become under its own control? Believe me, there are, did anybody see that relatively recent novel, a Gentleman in Moscow? I will recommend it. It's very beautiful. The way it is written. Okay? Or you can hear it if you like on CDs. But the idea is the main thesis, if you like, of that novel, because he goes back and forth to that idea. Are we in control of what we have, or we are going under the control of things?
What is the name?
The Gentleman in Moscow. It's very beautiful. The novelist is, he is an excellent writer. So he knows how to bring the ideas, okay, like to the readers in a very, very witty way. So we saw how the problem was traced. Okay, again, the greed is the problem. How to face it? Okay, now they cannot ignore it. They cannot ignore what they have seen. Nobody came and told them, okay, look what happened to you. No. They themselves had to face that outcome. And outcomes change behavior. Not only that, it has the capacity to change the ideas behind the behavior. Because every behavior you do is based on an idea. This is a problem, my dear brothers and sisters, because still the Muslim communities have not realized that. They have not realized why it is important to understand the issues at the level of the idea, not at the level only at the level of the action. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not change the affairs, the situation of any community until they change what inside them. That's not, Quran did not say change their habits or their behaviors. No, get to the deeper, to the root cause of the problem, which is, because ask yourself, you came today to the masjid. Probably, but if you analyze it, you will find that you took that action based on an idea. That I want today to participate in the discussion. Is that right? You did not like, well, no, let me go. No, you had an idea that determined the behavior. And outcomes, most of the time, change behavior. And I like always that example from surgery. That if you want to decrease, or one efficient way of decreasing infections after surgery is to report these infections by the surgeon. And does anybody want his or her reputation to go down the drain? Nobody. So once they started reporting, they are not saying, oh, we have this number of infections during that month, but we have these infections and we are breaking the data by the provider, by the surgeon. Immediately changed the incidence, because nobody, again, this outcome is very hurtful. So they start changing their behavior, paying more attention to aseptic techniques and the rest, and they were able really to change. This is very interesting, and there are so many examples like that. See, when Joint Commission comes to a hospital. We had done the same way. But you see like how, they immediately changes the behavior based on the outcomes. So no question that the outcome that they saw, we will see how it started changing their behavior. And by the way, now if I want to read the whole story, it will take probably less than a minute. But please don't think that everything happened within that minute in reality. It's like when you watch a movie, sometimes it really encompasses like a decade. But you see it in a couple hours. Is that right? So, because it is very important that this is a process. It's not like automatically happened, they saw the outcome and next day they will become righteous. This is a process. Now, see what happened.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, please.
So this story that Allah is describing here, is it just a parable that Allah describes to make some points, or did it really happen, and when, and what's the place, which country, where did it happen?
This is the interesting thing that, and thank you very much for it, because really I wanted from the beginning to say that the story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not tell us about the people involved, who they are, how many, and what time in the history of humanity it happened, and what part of the world it happened. So none of that was told to make it universal. So it is taken from reality. Because we said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have does not confabulate, or fabricate these things for us. But He will take these incidents that are relevant to us, capture them for us, and tell them anonymously, if you like, to make the point that this is the idea is not to be distracted by these little things here and there, but to focus on the moral of that story. That is it relevant to you or not? How to avoid that outcome? And as you know, okay, does history repeats itself? Or we repeat history? Those who do not understand history tend to repeat it. History is not like somebody who has a brain and he decides like to repeat itself. But we repeat the history when we do not understand it and learn not from our own mistakes, but also from the mistakes of others. And at the end of the surah, it's very beautiful, my dear brothers and sisters. Muhammad ﷺ was asked not only to see in the previous prophets' experiences lot of lessons to learn only in the positive way, but also in the negative. وَلَا تَكُنْ Don't be. At the end of the surah, اصبر على ما يقولون ولا تكن فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تكن كصاحب الحوت. Don't repeat the experience, because you will face the same outcome. And the same thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the people, as we said, who had this problem of greed, the elites in Mecca, who put themselves in the leadership, but they started really discriminating between or dividing the society into classes, disenfranchise this and marginalize that, okay, to basically protect their own interest out of greed. So Quran is saying if they do not change their behavior, they will face the same situation. The same thing he said about that person who have all these bad qualities, سَنَسِمُهُ عَلَى الْخُرْطُومِ. Literally, like we will like hit him on his face. But it's basically because the face is the most dignified part of us. If it is mutilated, I mean, like you will live with this, you feel the disgrace. So this is what Quran is saying. They will face this indelible disgrace. You see where so the same thing now, not at the personal level, سَنَسِمُهُ عَلَى الْخُرْطُومِ, that person, but also at the community level. In other words, the whole community may be taken by, if there are no one among them who will stand up and say, look, there is a problem. And these people were warned. فَانْطَلَقُوا وَهُمْ يَتَخَافَتُونَ, secretly, أَنْ لَا يَدْخُلَنَّهَا الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِسْكِينٌ. Don't allow the poor to come, because the poor, they had this, based on the legacy of the father, they were expecting something, so they will come. So they did it very early, so that before anybody shows up. Okay? وَغَدَوْا عَلَى حَرْدٍ قَادِرِينَ. They thought that they will be in control of that harvest. فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهَا قَالُوا إِنَّا لَضَالُونَ. They realized that they were going astray. They realized that their actions were not right, and that outcome was compatible with their action. بَلْ نَحْنُ مَحْرُومُونَ. So they are shut out. We lost everything. It's not only the portion, the whole thing that they used to give to the poor, they lost everything. So they lost their way and they lost everything. But because they lost their way, they lost everything. You see, this is very important. So what was happening inside them, the ideas that drove them to do these actions, they were responsible for that outcome. Not only the action itself, but what was behind the action. Because this thing can happen even if you are doing right. I mean, disasters, hardships can happen. Okay? But subhanallah, the believer immediately starts thinking, what did I do wrong? If that feeling is helping you to change your behavior, that's fine. But do not follow the conspiracy theory. Don't fabricate that conspiracy, okay? But always think, what can I do? How can I do better? Because these things can be like eye-openers, awakening. Wake up, okay? That's okay. In fact, it will be helpful. Qala here is really the most important, I would say, part of the story. Qala awsatuhum. Awsatuhum, in the middle. What does that tell you? The person in the middle.
He realized something.
So he was thinking better than them. He was really the smartest. Really.
Conscious almost.
Okay. So the most right-minded among them. It's not like the one in the middle, like there are five, the third one on the line. He was, you see what I mean? It's like what we read in Quran, was-salatul wusta. So we start thinking, which one comes in the middle of the day? Is it really al-asr, or is it really al-maghrib, or whatever, or al-fajr, or whatever? I mean, doesn't matter. But is your prayer in the middle? Is it making you a balanced human being? Awsatuhum is really the most balanced among them. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. The most balanced and just nation to become the beacon for others. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. To play the role of the prophet as a witness to humanity.
So not going too much towards the right, you're saying?
To be in the middle,
right, but
to be balanced. And balance is not bouncing between extremes. It's how you really balance among all your own dimensions. We have desires. We are not neglecting our own desires. We have aspirations. We have spiritual needs. All these are inside us. How I can be in the middle at an equal distance from all these dimensions. So you do all of them, but not one at the expense of the other. You see what I mean? So, فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. You are in the middle of all these things that are really like battling inside you. And you feel it. Sometimes our desires are fighting what our mind is telling us to do, what our reason is telling us. Sometimes our reason get above and we say, oh, you have to neglect or to... No. How you take all these dimensions at the same time, but not one at the expense of the other. Still in the mind of people that we go from one extreme to the other.
It's like equilibrium.
Equilibrium.
Right?
And equilibrium is really, it's not only balance, you are right, because it is a dynamic balance.
it keeps changing.
You see what it is? Balance is static. Equilibrium is really dynamic balance because you are moving all the time. And if you are, it's a good reason like to elevate the level of your balance. Think about it like when you are flying in an aeroplane. The higher the plane goes, the higher level of balance it has to maintain. Any deviation, I mean, if you are walking on the ground, you need a lot of deviation of the balance in order to fall. But when you are there, any like a sliver of imbalance, the plane. You see what I mean? So the higher you go, the more you need, more efforts are needed to maintain that balance. Yes?
We are going back to the same idea, the prison. You are in full control of all these.
Very good. Exactly. You are in control of all these dimensions. Very beautiful.
If you become in their control, then you are lucky.
And that is the contrasting paradigm here between that child in that group who is saying, this is not true. This plan is not going to work. You are really going against the balance that was maintained by our Father. Yes, we have this harvest, but we have the capacity to liberate ourselves from it and give a portion of it to the poor. This is a control. Losing the control, you don't want to leave or to share anything with others. So now we have a deeper understanding of greed. Greed is a state of transgression, طغيان in the Quranic terminology, going to the extreme. You see, the right-minded, the balance is trying to bring them. What was the mechanism? لولا تسبحون. When I say تسبحون, what does it? How can you translate it? In action, what do we say? Tasbih, what do we say? Subhanallah. What does it mean, Subhanallah?
Pure is.
I'm sorry?
Pure.
Yeah, pure of what?
Impurity is attributed to him.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure of what? Of any deficiency or any error. In Arabic we say تنزه الله عن النقص. So he is above error, above deficiencies. So when you are saying Subhanallah, what are you asking Allah to help you? To help you to liberate yourself from the error and deficiency. So where we translate that in our actions? In our prayer, where do you say Subhanallah? When you are bowing. Is that right? Ruku'. Remember what we said about ruku' is a state of really acknowledging your own mistakes, your own deficiencies. You remember what Dawood alayhi salam, when he realized that he did a mistake, خَرَّ رَاكِعًا وَأَنَابَ. I'm not fabricating things. I'm not confabulating here. I am making synthesis of what Quran is telling us. So now please now when you say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, you will say it with the same meaning? I mean with the same feeling? I am sure you will say it in a different meaning. With different feeling. It's not just a word, oh Subhanallah. What does it mean to me? Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to acknowledge that? He is, whether I acknowledge or not. He is above error and above deficiency. But how that translates to me, it's a mechanism. And we will see it that it was the mechanism that liberated Yunus alayhi salam, who will be mentioned in the same story, from the whale. What liberated him? فَلَوْلَا أَنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُسَبِّحِينَ لَلَبِثَ فِي بَطْنِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. If it were not for his tasbih, he would have stayed there for the day of judgment. So what was the key for that prison? He was in a prison. سبحانك إني كنت من سبحانك فلولا أنه كان من المسبحين.
Okay, excuse me for the interruption.
Yeah, please.
So I have criticism for the son in the middle, the centrist. He's coming up with all those wise words after the devastation. He wasn't able to influence the other brothers from, right? So, and there's no documentation that he did,
No, he did it in mind.
In his mind, but that's...
No, not as in mind. Quran is saying.
They say that he...
Yeah.
He did remind.
But the point is, the credit that is given that he stood up. Yes, he was not successful.
Right,
Okay, and convincing them not to go that path.
Right.
Okay, but he basically said it. Okay, so the problem is that in other words, he helped them through tasbih to liberate them from that plan. They had the chance, okay, to avoid that outcome if they listened to him. But they did not. But for us, okay, I mean the moral of this, so greed is a state of transgression and extreme, okay, opposed by balance, to be in the middle, to be able to accommodate and answer to all your dimensions. Okay? In other words, to be in this world, but have the capacity to liberate yourself from it. Now, at the macro level, if we take the whole Islamic experience, no question in my mind that Muhammad ﷺ established the balance in Medina. And the disciples tried their best to maintain it. Why do you think what was the conflict between Ali and Muawiyah? Was it because Ali was interested to be the head of the community against, Muawiyah? But Ali ibn Abi Talib was concerned about the direction that Muawiyah was taking the Muslim society at the time, while Ali was trying to maintain. This is a conflict not of position, a conflict of direction. Which direction the society is taking? Unfortunately, Ali ibn Abi Talib was not successful. But he stood up for this. Until today, yes, he was not successful on the ground, but his approach remained the successful one. Who would say that I'll be following Muawiyah and what he did? You don't. There are it's a small minority. But the approach of Ali is very, not only by Muslims. The best people who wrote about Imam Ali are not Muslims. George Jordan is one of the best writers who wrote about Imam Ali. His name is George Jordan, Lebanese. But the point is, I'm trying to say that Imam Ali and his approach was a model for humanity. This is what I'm trying to say. So the whole community was taken, and later on, unfortunately, instead of going into the middle and maintain it, we went to the other extreme, okay, where we start to refuse the word. In the late days of Sufism, not in the early. Because in the early days, we're really trying to bring the society into the middle. So balance is really how to balance being in the world and be capable of liberating yourself from it. The pathway that was started with Muawiyah took the society to be totally in the world. Have you heard about Hayy bin Yaqza by Ibn Tufayl? It's interesting that we found that there are 3 stories. This is a story, but it has very huge moral. But the same story, Hayy bin Yaqza, was written by Ibn Sina and by Sahrawardi after. So Ibn Sina wrote it, and Ibn Tufayl wrote it, and Sahrawardi wrote it. They present it in different ways, but you can see the movement of the society through these writers. Ibn Sina, you can see his description of the society going into the world. Ibn Tufayl, you see him like trying to bring the society into the middle. Sahrawardi, taking the society totally outside the world. You see? These 3 require really more elaboration. But that's why I said macroscopically.
These 3 individuals that you mentioned, are they from the same place as?
And the Muslim environment, yeah.
No, are they from Syria or Iraq or?
I think Sarwardi is from the
so the Muslim world was one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And to call it, the same story. They were aware of each other.
But were they contemporary? Or?
Yeah, within 100 years. Okay, within. Yeah. But that gives you from literature, if you like. Okay, not necessarily from politics, from literature, a way to understand the movement of the society. Okay, here Quran is talking at individual levels. Okay, what is the difference when you are, in the state of balance versus when there is diversion, and to go to the extreme. Why I am saying this? Because Quran said, قالوا فأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتلاومون. So they started really blaming each other. قالوا يا ويلنا إنا كنا طاغين, from طغيان. So we have a transgressed. We were on the extreme.
So they acknowledge it.
They acknowledged it. But this is what my point is. Even they start saying Subhanallah, but it's not a word. It's a process, okay, of how to liberate themselves from that situation, to change themselves from inside.
But it's too late now.
It's too late for that. Okay, what happened has happened. Okay, but how the Quran is saying, how now start heeding the advice of the right-minded among them. Now they want to erase. We said the tracing, facing, now erasing. How to erase that problem? You see what I mean? So the mechanism was through acknowledging their own error and liberating themselves from it. Dear brothers and sisters, very important that we need to believe that we have the capacity to make errors. Erring is part of us. Because if I do not acknowledge this, there is no way to correct. And correcting means, or repenting in fact, is a transcendence. How to transcend a mistake. How to liberate yourself. Otherwise the mistake becomes, the khata becomes khati'ah. And khati'ah, Quran said, أَحَاطَتْ بِهِ خَطِيئَتُهُ. Became engulfed, imprisoned by the mistake. So don't allow the khata to become khati'ah. Repentance is really to transcend the mistake, to liberate yourself from the prison of the mistake. Because mistakes are part of us. وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ كُلُّ ابْنَ آدَمَ خَطَّاء.
Iqbal said that why nakami mataye karavan jata raha, karavan ke dil se ehsaase ziyan jata raha. So it says that this is the ultimate why nakami loss. That the whole wealth of the caravan was looted. And the wealth of the caravan was the ihsas ziyan, the sense of loss. The mistakes that you have done.
Yes, very good, very good. Exactly.
This is the greatest
loss. Yes.
If you don't acknowledge what you have lost.
MashaAllah, thank you very much. Because really, what is worse than the defeat? The sense of being defeated. You see what I mean? I shared with you this. This is what happens in the Air Force in this country. If a pilot crashes his plane and he came out of it without any scratch, okay? What is the first thing they do to that pilot?
They have to go back.
They put him on another plane. Why? Because they don't want this to be defeated by his defeat. I mean, this happened. I mean, my son was involved in a car accident. Alhamdulillah, he was fine. I mean, many years ago. So I went with my car to see what happened, and really the car was really damaged from the front. So I remember that thing. I said, Khalid, I drive my car and you drive your car. And I was happy that I did it because he was shaken. He was shaking, and he was embarrassed also. But what I did was basically for him to transcend that feeling of that he did something wrong. I said, these things happen. Okay, so don't worry about it. He continued to apologize. I said, forget about it. These things really happen. But if I did not put him on his car, he would not probably have driven again. You see, so definitely at the level of the pilot is more important because they have invested so much in that. To lose him just because of this, it's a big problem. So they put him on So I agree with you that the point is not the mistake, but to become prisoners to the mistake. Not the defeat, but the prison of the defeat. Not the loss, but the prison of the loss. That feeling that will put you down and you will not allow you to go forward. So قالوا يا ويلنا إنا كنا طاغين عسى ربنا أن يبدلنا خيرا منها. So they start wishing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to replace them with another one. Better than it. إنا إلى ربنا راغبون. You see, راغبون from رغبة, desire.
So these people are believers. I mean,
No question about that. They have seen, they were raised in a very good family. It's not really about, but again, to see that we are all vulnerable. We are all subject to these really shortcomings. Okay, but the point, how to come out of it. How to liberate ourselves from it. As we said, no reconciliation when it comes to high values. You see, greed is not a high value. Balance is a high value. Because it is connected with a justice. What is a justice? Balance. Is that right? So the whole idea, how they changed their direction. Greed was, in what direction they were going? They were after their desires. Is that right? So that was their desire. To be greedy, to have all the money, all the harvest. Is that right? Now they have changed their direction. Where now is their desire? Towards Allah. Towards the high values that are derived from the beautiful names of Allah. When I say I am going back to Allah, what is that? What does it really mean? Demystify it. I am going to follow the high values that are derived from the beautiful names of Allah. I will be more forgiving. I will be more generous. I will be more... You see, this is how to come back to Allah. How many times they tell you, you have to go back to Allah. How many times you have heard this? From all these khutbahs that we have listened over the years. Udu ilallah. Go back to Allah. How? Show me. How? And the best thing, you have to pray and fast. Does that really, bring you really to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If that prayer and that fasting is disconnected from my life, it doesn't mean anything. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. And by the way, this surah was not far from this surah. Probably it came after it. What is this? يَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. They are not ready to give any simple assistance. So, probably they were praying. I don't know. But even if they were praying, their prayer will be against them. This is courage. This is courage, my dear brothers and sisters, for Quran to say that the prayer may lead you to destruction. Have you seen it in any textbook? That a prayer will take you towards destruction? Ma'un. But have you seen it in other? This is courage to say that even a prayer by itself is a good thing. Is that right? Neutrally is a good thing. But if it is given the wrong direction, it will lead you towards Jahannam. It's about direction.
We've seen ISIS.
Very good.
What is the point?
So how to your desire to be compatible, with the high values. You like to eat, you like to drink, you like to have children, you like to have fun, you like to enjoy things in this life. Sparta, you like to listen to music, this is part of us. Don't ignore it. But ask the good question, in what direction you are doing this. Instead of asking, is the music good or bad, ask what type of music you need for this time in your life. It's to complete. Is ikhtilat good or bad? Like to have men and women in the same room? Don't ask a question like that. Ask for what reason they are meeting. Change the subjects discussed, and you see that it will become a very beautiful meetings. You see what? So it's all about direction. لِكُلٍّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا. Wajha, direction. Okay? Remember, action and direction. Action and direction. Quran is a reference for direction, not action. The universe is capable of teaching you how to act, but doesn't give you direction. Do you take Quran with you to treat your patient and to do the surgery? No, this is not coming. But informed by Quran. But the most important information is really about direction. And to be honest with you, what is needed? A new science. The science of direction. It's missing for the whole world. We have done very good job in our relationship with the universe as a reference for our action, especially for over the last 500 years, and everything we enjoy today because of that. You see how knowledge is accumulating and all these inventions coming one after the other because of that. We have done very good job, but when it comes to direction, we still have a problem.
So even the Muslim philosophers,
Mm-hmm.
if you are familiar with anyone who might have done some contribution towards the science of direction?
Unfortunately, you see that it was not. You can see they scratching on it, on the surface of it, but was not really transformed into real science. I mean by science is not accumulation of knowledge, compendium of knowledge, but how that science will be capable of answering interrelated questions so that it will advance.
The terms in philosophy they use is reconciling of philosophies. So when the Muslims went and were exposed to the ancient philosophy, Ibn Sina, Farabi, Ibn Rushd, so they took those ancient Greek, Roman philosophy, and the problem they could not reconcile it. So nowadays the modern philosophy that is a product of last 2 centuries, it has come from a totally different perception of reality. The perception of reality is based on the knowledge that we obtain. Whereas in religion, scholastic philosophy and Islamic philosophy, scholastic philosophy is the philosophy of the medieval times, the Saint Aquinas. Reality superseded knowledge, and then from knowledge, ethics of Khayr or Shar emanated. So right now the problem is that we are just following this philosophy that is the product of last 200 years, and we have another philosophy of the religion in which God and divinity is above knowledge. So the challenge is that how to reconcile the two.
Yeah.
Because we are doing everything.
Yeah.
When we wake up, we do everything that we are seeing being done since our birth time. We are not questioning it. We are not challenging it. So as you say, الَّذِينَ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاءِ الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. People are constantly remembering Allah and then doing the tafakkur. So that what is the, what you are saying is that the thought process, challenging everything,
But when
trying to determine the reality.
The problem I think that we are facing today is really to decide on the reference for the direction of our action. Okay, and the two people that from that period, Ibn Khaldun, in the study of history, was able to see the direction, the idea of the direction. Okay, and Ibn al-Haytham, who was able also to see more into the universe as really a reference for for our actions. You see what I mean? So Ibn al-Haytham, and this is why when you go to Washington D.C., to the major museums over there, and you see the contribution of civilization on Africa, you see Ibn al-Haytham and physics, optics in particular.
I think it's Smithsonian.
The Smithsonian, yes. You see the contribution, because they realized, okay, without any bias, that he was the one to put really humanity on the new path of experimental, the scientific methodology, okay, where the universe, not the speculative thinking that was prevalent before that came from the Roman Greek, philosophy. So my point is that we basically need, as we can see from the verses, between that desire that led them, okay, to be greedy, compared to the direction that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where the high values become realized in our life. The Quran is using the same term. Inna ila rabbina raghibun. It's the same raghba. Okay? فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. Raghba. But make your desire compatible with the high values derived from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what we really need to focus on, okay? How that idea can be studied, collaborated on. It's not going to be one-man show. Okay? It's really the contribution of so many people in order to bring it to the level of becoming a science, okay, capable of advancing, predicting the future and answering questions related to that science. And this is how you differentiate between science and pseudoscience. There are a lot of pseudosciences around us, but they are stuck. They don't advance. One of the characteristics, the thing that for you and me to differentiate, is it advancing? It's not advancing. So that it doesn't fit the definition even of science. Oh, you see what I mean? So that's become, again, really our job. كذلك العذاب ولعذاب الآخرة أكبر لو كانوا يعلمون. This is how that section was ended. Okay, that what you saw is going to happen again if you do not learn from it in this life and in the hereafter. Al-Akhirah, what coming next, could be here also. وَكَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابِ. And every time you see كَذَلِكَ in Quran, it means this is the standard. It's the rule. Yeah? وَكَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابِ كَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابِ وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. What coming after that will be even bigger and worse. So learn from that and change direction. Thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khairan.